Thank you so much. This is Judder.news, and we are really excited this week to have Adam Bombody talk with us about the life of a VR streamer. So please introduce yourself and tell us about your experience with VR, please.
Yeah, so my name is Adam, or I guess Adam Bombody for full names. And I am a VR content creator, but I'm also a product manager over at Live. How I kind of got started into VR was I was doing your typical like variety streaming at first with desktop games. I didn't really have a genre that I particularly stuck to or even a plan. And I kind of liked fitness and cosplay and video games. And I was trying to cram like three different types of things into one, which was not working very well. But then when I discovered VR, that was, I want to say, when like Half-Life Alyx came out. I already had a headset prior, but I tried a couple things and it stayed in a box during a move and sort of never came back out. But Half-Life Alyx came out. And since I was already streaming at the time, I was like, oh, wow, I don't see a lot of people do VR streaming. And I really loved like Half-Life. And so I couldn't wait to try Half-Life Alyx. So I had to try to figure out, how does this work? Like, how do you stream VR? How do you read chat in VR? Like, how do you do all of the basic things that one is used to with normal desktop streaming, but in VR? And so I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, did a ton of Googling, because the technology was moving so fast, like some of the information was outdated. So I kind of had to like Frankenstein and compile information from different sources into something that actually worked. And eventually I did, and I was able to stream it, and it was stressful, but super fun. But then that's kind of where I got the idea of like, okay, if I'm trying to figure all this stuff out and I'm struggling with these things, I'm sure other people are going to, need to find the information as well. So I was like, I'll just start a YouTube channel that's got tutorials on how to be able to do this thing. Because I never really had a real direction in my content. Like I said before, I was doing variety stuff. So I knew that like everyone's always like, oh, find your niche or find your target audience and your branding. I didn't really have that figured out yet. But when it came to VR, that was kind of my moment, I guess. I was like, oh, I found my thing. I think I'm gonna like something I could stick with. And I was super excited, but also super scared to make the switch, because I was like, I don't know if my current flat screen audience, I don't know how they would react to like all of a sudden a total shift in VR. But it worked out really great. And it's not like, looking back, I'm like, I didn't have much of an audience to really worry about pivoting anyway. But yeah, that's gonna be, long story short, it's me in a nutshell. That's how I sort of got to be here today, I suppose.
What was your very first experience in VR, if you remember, or if you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, probably similar to a lot of people. I'm pretty sure I did the lab like everybody else, because that was the first free thing that you had access to getting a headset. And I still remember that. And even just like the Steam VR Home, I remember just going through all of the different, like just pre-made, I don't know what you want to call them, worlds or maps exactly, and like adding all the trophies and stuff. But I remember specifically in the lab, I had the funnest time with the little confetti gun thing. Like that was the coolest thing, to shoot off the confetti gun and be like, whoa. I mean, now that, we've got more experience into VR, it's like, that was the most exciting thing. But at the time, it was just crazy. And I remember the archery game and getting to actually feel like I'm moving my arms and it's doing things. Like, I don't know, it was so cool. And then, of course, following that, you go super hardcore. I think I made the mistake of trying to play a horror game. I think it was like a chair in a room, green water or something, which is still, to me, to this day, probably one of the most scariest VR games out there. So I don't know if that was the best way to, wade myself into it. But and then those, the Arizona sunshine and all that stuff. I was just about to say, those were such great ones.
Like one of the first, so like years ago, I had gotten my introduction in VR, helping with the VR arcade, and we'd have so many people come in, and they would just immediately go for Arizona sunshine. I'm like, no, oh no, this is gonna terrify you. This is we had like a lot of people who Google Earth was their very first, and that was a different experience too. But so you've created a lot of content and you've seen a lot in VR. So, and part of what you do is you, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you help other VR influencers and creators too with a lot of material. So is there like one piece of advice or content that you've made that you're most proud of?
I think, I mean, there's a lot of them that I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a great video and this is a great tutorial. And then sometimes it's just like, oh, like it didn't hit for some reason. But I think it's part of the content creation life, I suppose. Stuff that you pour hours into sometimes will just like, well, I guess maybe it'll pick up later. Who knows? It's the great part about YouTube, right? Or TikTok. But I think probably the biggest one for me was the most simplest. I thought that like, oh, this is a good thing to know, but I didn't think it was that uncommon. And it was just how to be able to read chat in your headset. And because basically two different offerings for that. One is Live Streamer Kit, which is free, but they only do Twitch at the moment, although YouTube is coming. And then OVR Toolkit, which you could basically, pop out your chat window and bring that into VR with you. And so that video did really, really well. And I think because I knew I could get that tutorial done pretty simply and easily, I was like, let's try that one. And I think that one sort of really got me into doing more tutorials of varying difficulty. But a lot of them I'm even having to go back and redo because the like UI or UX changes or, a lot of additions have been made since then. So that's another side of the tutorial life. It's like, the video that I put out is no longer outdated. Even sometimes the day before, it's like, there was a giant update to this. And now my brand new video is just wrong.
Yeah. It's just so exciting, which on that note, like what's something really frustrating about being a creator that you maybe don't think people realize or understand, especially in VR, where things are changing rapidly?
This might be kind of not necessarily VR specific or anything, but I sometimes wonder, I don't know if people who comment on YouTube realize like we can read all of the comments, even the deleted ones, okay? And which is sometimes good because if someone asks me a question, and I'll go back to answer it and it's gone. I'm like, okay, maybe they, figured out their answer. Cool. But sometimes you get the negative ones and you're like, ooh, am I gonna be petty and respond to this? But even when you just go back to click on it, it's like mysteriously gone. And it's like, well, I still read it, like I got that in my email and in my notification. So I don't know if people realize that sometimes or they'll, especially when you get the negative one and then another one that's like quite not as negative, but they deleted it and then kind of reworded it. And I'm like, I still saw the original. I still know the your intent, but I don't know. It's weird. So we can see those. I don't know if anyone who would be watching this would be like an angry YouTube commenter.
We'll find out. That'll be great. Like maybe we'll be getting some angry responses to this and I'll be able to commiserate. That's interesting. But you mentioned Live. So can you talk a little bit about Live and how you're involved there?
Yeah. So I, through my research and trying to figure out how the heck to live stream and record VR, I discovered Live. And Live does a lot of things. It's basically like your streaming, like anything you could need to stream in VR, Live has. Like Live has Streamer Kit, which lets you read, Twitch chat or your Discord chat if you wanted to in VR. They've got mixed reality capture. So mixed reality basically it puts you inside of a game. Like if you've seen all the Beat Saber people, they're probably using Live. Avatar support. So if you don't want to be your real life you in VR, you can be any avatar. All kinds of other stuff. But so yeah, once I found out about mixed reality, I was like, oh, this is super cool. And then I went out and got my green screen, my backdrop stand. That was way before this. Like this is the extreme of what happens if you end up liking it enough to want to paint your whole dang room green. But I got my backdrop stand, my green screen. I got like the Home Depot clamp lights because to put everywhere because I didn't want to spend out a lot of money. And I loved it. And it was really cool. And so I did I started doing live tutorials. They didn't ask me or anything. I just figured like, hey, this is cool and kind of complicated. If you don't know what you're doing, maybe I'll help people out. Long story short, eventually they were looking for a community manager. And I was like, well, I don't have any official like community management experience, although I have been, running my own brands, socials, and sort of doing the same thing, but not on a team standpoint, more as an individual. So I was like, I don't know. People always say to just apply and see what happens. So I'll just, do that here too. And lo and behold, they actually hired me. And so that was really cool. But then eventually I got moved up to product management. And so now, sadly, it's Bradley's our community manager, but it's really interesting getting experience in both, not only working with a team, like marketing in that sense, but now product management, which is a whole new thing to me and is slightly intimidating. I'm going to be working specifically with getting more better avatar capabilities out there with Live. But yeah, it's just so different. But I'm grateful because I like doing new things. It's just like, just give me time. I just have to figure out what I'm doing first. Like I'm not going to be amazing off the bat. I have to kind of wade into it a little.
That's fantastic. Like that's a really, really awesome. And we're seeing a little bit more of that where VR creators, as they are doing, well, like fast travel games just picked up. Like it seems that there's a natural progression here in VR as well as in the games industry as a whole. And it's pretty awesome. Like it makes sense when you think about it, because we like content creators are they wear a lot of hats. You not only have the like audio visual side of all the things that you have to do for your streams and recordings, but then you also have you're trying to build your own community, grow your own socials. So it's kind of very similar, except just taking it on to more of a team. So instead of it's just going to be a we situation. And so I love telling people, I mean, if you want to do content creation and stick to just that, it's totally fine, but like those experiences that you gain as a influencer, as a content creator, they can actually carry on into a more fun, stable income. Because I know that a lot of creators, they have maybe their other job that they hate but they need money. But you can actually take your skills now into maybe working in the industry that you enjoy, doing the same things, but on a team. So it's like, don't put yourself in a box. That's I love telling people is like, but if you want to just do content creation too, and that's your goal, that's fine. But don't box yourself in. There's a lot of potential to be able to take that experience into a job. Like having stable income is so nice. Let me tell you, compared to this like starving artist content creator money, Jesus. Yeah,
but
and I don't think most people tend to realize how much effort goes into content creation. All of these wonderful people who are working so diligently to regularly stream or regularly edit these videos, and there's a lot of moving parts, and it's a really incredible feat. So congratulations, that's fantastic. That's a great story. Now for a trickier question, or like let's set the baseline. What's the headset you are using? So we're in the year 2022. It's May. What's your go-to headset currently for VR, just for your own enjoyment?
Well, when it comes to content creation, I prefer the Valve Index just because that's already hooked up to my PC. I can record like that, make adjustments. But I will say that for my actual enjoyment, I use the Quest pretty much daily. Not necessarily for gaming though. I do like Supernatural and VZ Fit like at least 6 days a week. And then I also bring the Quest with me traveling. So if I want, like I just got Garden of the Seas, which I'm kind of scared, but I got that even though I know it's on Steam and I kind of prefer games on Steam. I got it on the Quest knowing that if I'm addicted, I want to be able to take it with me traveling because I don't want that FOMO of like, oh no. So that's, it's a big plus to me is stuff I could take with me traveling and keep fueling my addictions.
That's fantastic. That's great. Yay.
Yeah.
So I would say like, okay, so I don't know if you want to go with Index or Quest, but what are your top 5 VR games and or experiences that you would recommend right now? No pressure.
I would say, okay, I do have for sure a lot of love for Walkabout Mini Golf. Well, I'll do like community nights every now and then, and it's always a good time because it's like there's no seriousness. I guess it depends on how you play, but there's no serious in mini golf. You know, you could just go to the different courses, have fun. You can chat about your day or about whatever while you're, just playing golf. So I have a lot of like happy memories and good times with friends in that game. And, just seeing the developers constantly update and everything. And they're super nice. It's just nice to see. It's so wholesome. I will do the super basic one out of the way, like Half-Life Alyx. I'm putting that in there because that's kind of what got me started in VR streaming. And it's a great game, but that's kind of, I feel like, on everybody's list. I will give a side, side note, not side note, but like Neos VR, kind of hard to get into, but when you see what's possible in that game, so not really a game, I guess app game, social experience, it's insane. It's absolutely crazy. Like I know that VR chat, Rec Room, those are all more popular, but if you like to tinker or just watch people make crazy stuff, like Neos is totally out there. And then I think my last two, those are going to be Quest specific. Those are Supernatural and VZ Fit because I use those, like I said, like every day. It's been so helpful in helping me, lose pandemic weight and just stay sane. So I love those so much. Those are like my daily driver apps. I love them so much.
And I have, so as a newly recent addict of Supernatural, do you have a go-to playlist so far, or?
I don't have a go-to playlist, but I really like the boxing ones because I actually use a heart rate monitor to make sure that I'm not, because when I was playing Beat Saber, eventually I'd get to a point where I got comfortable and I just let's just see how fast I can flail my arms, but I'm not really sweating like you did when you first started Beat Saber.
Yeah.
So I try to just go through the different maps and I'll like check my heart rate at then and be like, okay, I was in like the yellow or whatever, that's good. But if I'm in like the blue, I'm like, that wasn't very, like, it was fun, but it wasn't as beneficial as it could have been, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I do like the boxing ones, but I have to kind of be prepared because I always get drenched after I do the boxing maps.
Yeah, I just discovered this morning, I had been doing light and medium, and I finally did my first harder intensity, and it was the disco playlist, and I really loved it. Like there's something quite fantastic. Like it's just a good feeling punching the air in time with Funky Town.
Yeah, they're mapped really well too. Like for boxing and flow, it's just so satisfying. I think, I guess not specific map wise, but I do like the beast mode styled, whether it's flow or boxing, because I like the rock or the heavy metal. I could really get into it and feel awesome. So those are probably my favorites.
And this is part of like why we've worked to create Judder. So I have a really good friend who her 90-year-old grandmother has a Quest 2, and Supernatural is all she plays. Like every day. Like she'll either explore experiences or Supernatural. And my friend will try to introduce her to games, and she's like, no, like I want my Supernatural. And there are so many wonderful types of people drawn to different facets of VR. It's not exclusively games, but there was a really great post on NPR recently about grandparents who are just getting more into VR and sharing it with their grandchildren. Like it's just, it's so cool. And it's not what you think of necessarily. Like that's not the first, like you think Half-Life Alyx, and so let's round this out. What's one other creator in the VR space that you would recommend people shout out just to pay it forward?
Ooh, can I do like 3 or is it just one?
I'm going to allow it. Yes.
Okay. Because there was like 3 that I'm like, I really want it. So the first one is the first one's kind of 2 guys, the Between Realities podcast. They basically have guests on every Friday, and I've met these guys in real life. I run into them probably like every VR convention ever, because Skiva's like 6'1" or something. He's a very large man, but they're the nicest guys. I still remember Alex, one of the other co-hosts, was like, man, you're like a sister. And I don't know, that was such a nicest, like thing to say. You're like a sister to us. You may have been a little inebriated, but that's okay. I'll still take a compliment.
Yeah.
I'll still take a compliment.
Like, compliment.
But they're anyway, besides them being the super nicest guys, also Otterworldly, I feel like she and I are very similar. I mean, she's got like a way larger audience, but she's also super sweet. She does a lot of mixed reality work as well. And she's like the funnest costumes. I'm like so jealous sometimes. Where do you go? Where do you buy these? But then also his name is makes me giggle every time, but it's Duty Does. It's DEWDY. Duty Does. And he has a website that he's kind of an advocate for disabled VR gamers or content creators. So on his website, he'll sort of list games that have like a seated option, or maybe like just more disabled friendly options. And he'll also talk to game developers on like, hey, here's how you can make this more accessible to everybody. But his big thing especially is being able to have a seated mode in VR games, because he has to play seated. But yeah, really cool. So there's a lot of people out there doing really, really cool stuff.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing them. And we'll we'll spread the word there. All right. Again, this has been Adam Bombody. Please check out her content. Thank you for your time. This has been just a wonderful experience. And this has been Judder Nut News. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.